Good afternoon. Welcome to today's program. I am Monique Rogers-Dogby, Assistant Director of Prospect Research and Management and University Advancement here at Ohio University, and President of the Pan-African Alumni Network. We are excited to launch this Pan-African movie series, a platform for conversation and dialogue examining the global Black cinema experience using different lenses and audiences. This will be an interactive session consisting of virtual panels of Ohio alumni, students, faculty, and other relevant authorities on the Black movie experience. To kick off the series, we'll be unpacking the 1988 movie, Coming to America. To help guide us through the task will be Dr. Akil Houston. Dr. Houston is an associate professor of cultural and media studies in the Department of African American Studies at Ohio University. He teaches courses on African American education, African American media, Afrofuturism, pedagogy of Malcolm X, and other popular hip hop history, culture, and politics class. Dr. Houston's research areas include African American studies, educational philosophy, Africana womanism and Black feminism, civil studies, cultural studies, and hip hop culture. Please welcome today's moderator, Dr. Akil Houston.
Thank you so much. I want to acknowledge and thank everyone working behind the scenes, Monique Rogers-Dogby, Bose Maposa, and everyone else who's put this together in the Center for International Studies, as well as other units across the campus. So welcome, good afternoon. Thank you for spending your lunchtime with us. We are excited to invite you to the launch of the Pan-African Movie Series. This is a platform for conversation and dialogue examining the global Black cinema experience using different lenses and audiences. This will be interactive, and we have a number of exciting panels planned. We're going to begin our conversation with the movie Coming to America. Joining us in this particular effort, we have an amazing panel, which I might add are full of Bobcats past and present and forever. So I'd like to introduce them to you. We have Yaffet Jackman, who is an MFA student in the graduate MFA program. He is Brooklyn born, Guyanese bred, and he is a multifaceted creative with passion to learn, laugh, and live. He's had 20 years of experience in the media and television industry across the Caribbean and the United States. He is working his way up, or has worked his way up, from part-time camera operator to a budding cinematographer and director. Currently, he is making his presence known in the film industry. We also have, joining us from the MFA program, Joe Williams, whose expertise behind the camera began as a film loader fresh out of film school on the movie Telling Lies in America. Throughout the years, he's moved up the ranks from camera assistant to operator to director of photography. You may know his work from one of Fox's all-time top-rated shows, Empire, his latest work, Coming to America, the sequel for Paramount Pictures, and it will be seen on Amazon this March. Also joining us, we are fortunate to have Vanessa Callaway. She's earned 8 NAACP Image Award nominations. She won the NAACP Theater Award for Best Actress for her role as Zora Neale Hurston in her one-woman, critically acclaimed play Letters from Zora. Vanessa was invited to become a 2018 member of the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences for her contribution to the entertainment industry. Vanessa co-stars in the Focus feature Harriet and Nate Parker's soon-to-be-released American Skin. She reprises her role as Princess Imani Azizi in the soon-to-be-released Coming to America Part 2. Vanessa is currently featured in Dragged Across Concrete, starring Mel Gibson and Vince Vaughn, and an independent thriller entitled Thriller. Both can be seen on Netflix. Some of Callaway's other film credits include Southside with You, Unbroken, Path to Redemption, of course, Coming to America, What's Love Got to Do with It, Biker Boys, Daylight, Crimson Tide, Cheaper by the Dozen, and Inkwell. Her biography is quite extensive, and if I read the whole thing, that will be the entire time. Let me just say how delighted and excited we are to have her join us, along with the other panelists this afternoon. So to kind of get things started, what I'd like to do is to open up the floor and to ask the panelists, what their reflections are about the 1988 film Coming to America. But before we do that, let's set the table a little bit. We want to go back, as the postmodern day prophet Nasir Jones said, and bring 88 back. In 1988, it was a decade dominated by Reaganomics. We were seeing for the first time a number of filmmakers such as Julie Dash, Spike Lee, Zenabu Irene Davis, John Singleton, Matty Rich, and others, as well as Michael Jackson and Prince breaking color barriers on MTV. The noted film historian Donald Bogle says this of the 1980s. For Black Americans, it was a time to move fully into the system rather than to remain outside it. Never was that social philosophy more apparent than in the candidacy of Jesse Jackson for president of the United States. The 1980s was also the era when the Black superstar reigned supreme in the entertainment industry. Whitney Houston shot to the top of the music charts. The Cosby Show became the country's #1 primetime television program. Perhaps it was not surprising then that many Americans frequently lulled themselves into the assumption that the races were at peace with one another, that inner city blight and decay, as well as social tension and racial inequities, had ceased to exist, that indeed America's past history of racism had vanished. Consequently, when racial incidents sprang up in the area, like Howard Beach in New York, many were jolted. Perhaps the nation had not changed so much at all. So this is the context of the 1980s when this film came out, and this is obviously a precursor to films today such as Black Panther and others that feature all Black casts or prominent presence of Black cast members. So now that the table is set, let's open up the conversation to our panelists. Reflections, thoughts on the original film Coming to America.
The way that this film reads now, as opposed to when it was initially released, it's so different. The way that we're now looking and paying more attention to Blackness and the representation of Black people. I mean, then and now, the growth has come. There's exponential growth, but there's still room for growth, if you understand what I mean on that. Coming from at that time that it was released, I was ridiculously 4 years old, so I had nothing happening there for me. But with my recent rewatching of it, the fact that we're one with nature, Blackness, women and their representation, and now I'm looking at this even more critically because of all of the work that we've been putting in, as a society, especially the family dynamics, the way that cross culture kind of was, I guess set up against one another. A very strong African culture that's coming into a very strong New York culture, and the way that interacted as well. So it really does open up a whole new world of conversation, even now in 2020.
Absolutely. I guess we would be remiss if we didn't turn the floor over to Miss Vanessa Bell Callaway, who's actually in the movie. So I'm sure her experience is quite unique, having been in the film and then being able to see how it's turned into this cultural icon, not just in Black America, but in Pan-African Black world and even beyond.
Hi, everybody. Good morning or good afternoon to you. I'm in the West Coast, so it's morning. Hi, Joe. I didn't see you at first. How are you, Joe? Joe and I had the pleasure of working on Coming to America 2. And he's also friends of a friend through a family friend. So, like you said, once a Bobcat, always a Bobcat. Woo woo. But 1987, because that's when we started shooting the movie, was very interesting. I was engaged. I'll never forget how old Coming to America is, because it came out in June of '88 and I got married September 3rd of 1988. So it's as the same age as my marriage to me. So I'll never forget how old it turns every year. You guys can look at it now and you could pick it apart and see all the cultural, whatever you want to see. But you got to go back to 1988, being a Black actress. My dog is biting me. Stop, Ziggy. You got to go back. He's trying to get my attention. You got to go back to being an actress in 1988, a Black young actress in 1988, just trying to get work. Now, when it came out, of course, everybody was super excited because Eddie Murphy was a huge star. Who didn't want to be in a movie with Eddie Murphy? Arsenio Hall was, an upcoming star. Who didn't want to be in a movie like that? Now, what a lot of people don't know is I read for Lisa. I wasn't trying to be the bride. I wanted the bigger part. I'm an actress just like everybody else. Sherry Headley and I have been friends for years. I love her to death, but I wanted that part too. So when I go, and it's several funny stories. I'm not going to give you all at once, but several funny stories I have. But I go to a wig shop because the other thing that you got to understand in 1988, being a Black woman, you had to have a look because, men could not, even Black men could not see you past how you came in. So it was about hair and just the look and the body and all that. You had to take a lot of other things into consideration. Being good wasn't good enough, just being good. So I said to myself, my hair was short. I said, they're not, nobody's gonna look at me like this. I'm not gonna get the part. I go get a wig from a wig shop that's off Crenshaw, that's cheap, called the Imani. Do you hear what the name of the wig is? The wig is called the Imani. It's this little crinkly wig. I said, okay, this is better than my hair. I throw the wig on. I go to the casting director. I read, because at that time, that's before I was able to get offered a part or go right to the producers. You had to go to the casting first. Then they decide, for all you budding actors out there, then they decide if you can meet the producers and the director. I go to the casting person. She says, oh my God, I love your hair. It says nothing about my performance. I said, oh, okay, this wig works. I want you to come back, meet John Landis. I come back, I meet John Landis. I read the part. Once again, I'm trying to get that job. I ain't trying to be the prince. Now, I read the whole script, and I remember sitting in my bedroom reading the script and laughing out loud because it was hysterical. I meet John Landis. He says, I like your hair. There's this other part. There's this part of the princess. And I'm thinking to myself, I don't want that part. I want this part. But what do? You don't say no. I said, oh, sure. And he said, would you mind going out and reading it? And I'm like, sure. And I'm thinking, oh, no. So I'm a little frustrated inside because now I know I have no shot at the part that I really want. So I might as well make good on this because if I want something, this is what's going to happen. So now I'm forced to go out in the hallway with some sides and figure out how to bring this character alive in like 5 minutes. And I just calm myself down and I said, just sound different than what you sound, Vanessa. Just sound different. Because, she's supposed to have this accent. So I go back in and the thing about comedy for you budding actors and for Joe, he'll know because he, not only is he he likes, but he directs and all that too. Comedy plays when you play it for real. If you try to be funny, then 9 times out of 10, a lot of times it's not funny. But if you play the situation for real, that's what makes comedy funny, a real situation that's already funny. So I went in there and I played it for real. I really tried to bark because I'm in my mind, I'm trying to think, what does a orangutan sound like? I don't know, but I have to do this all on my feet. Then I get invited back to meet Eddie and the producers. I got the same hair, hand to God. They say, I like her hair. You like her hair? I like her hair. You like her hair. So that right there tells you a lot about the men in the industry. I had the same little, we called it back then, our little black uniform, as my husband likes to tease me. It was a black little tight dress that all the girls wore to the audition. So I had my uniform on and I had that wig on and I got the job. By the time I got on set, they give me 2 big wigs. I said, I went out and bought a $30 wig, got a job where I'm wearing 2 wigs. They've never seen my hair and nobody ever commented on whether or not I was a good actress. All they kept saying is, I like her hair. You like her hair? I like her hair. So that was my initial experience of coming to America. I'll let someone else speak, but of course I have other stories. But yeah, you got to look at it from my perspective. I wasn't looking at it culturally and what it was saying. I was trying to get a job because in 1987, when we all auditioned, there were very few jobs, far and few in between for young Black women, for Black people, period, but especially for young Black women.
Wow, thank you. Really setting the table. Joe, can we come to you? I mean, there's some inside stuff, and I think, for some who may be listening, there are conversations that we can have as audience members and as scholars, but there's this other side, the industry side, where, as she said, you're trying to get a job, And so the framing of cultural politics, the representation of Black women, you're trying to get a job, you're trying to eat, you're trying to get your name out there. Can you talk a little bit about some of those experiences behind the camera?
Well, first of all, I want to salute Vanessa on the whole context of that time and that era. Black people looking for images of ourselves on big screens, on small screens, whatever the limited thing was, you know, the 2 or 1 to 2 movies that came out a year during that time. You know, I have to salute her on that hustle. You know, the idea that, you know, you're going in there, you're trying to get work. You just, as a Black actor, you're just trying to get work. You're trying to get seen. You're trying to, you know, you're trying to put your brand out there, and it's the same. It's the same for the technical artists behind the scenes. Obviously, we have had a lot of progress between then and now, and there's more to be had. You know, particularly from the writing and the producing standpoint, which is where it really happens, creating the content. And I think for me, you know, in '88, I was a freshman at OU, you know, and then there was 1 movie a year coming out. You know, Spike had one, and then John had one, and then, you know, there was the Hughes brothers or whatever. You know, there was 1 or maybe 2 movies a year for us. So, you know, during the time I was in film school, you know, there weren't any, I didn't see any Black cinematographers out there really doing it. There was Ernest Dickerson, who was doing it for Spike at the time. And I think at that time, you know, I didn't learn of him until probably Spike's 3rd movie or so. I do remember being at OU once and getting an American Cinematographer magazine and leafing through it and seeing a Black cinematographer named Remy Adefarasin. And this is a brother out of the UK. And he shot a movie called Elizabeth or something. And it was this white period piece. And it was grand. Not one Black person in the movie, but there was a brother who shot it. And it was a Black British dude. He's still around. He still works. As a matter of fact, he just did a movie called Christmas something. It's on Netflix. Oh, man. So for me,
Jingle Jangle. It's Jingle Jangle.
Thank you, Vanessa. Thank you. And so this brother, Remy Adefarasin, is the DP for that movie. Little known, very low key, not, you know, not very out there, but I remember seeing this image of this dude. And I remember thinking, wow, this is a Black dude doing it. He's a cinematographer on a major movie, and it's all white people, and it's English, and it's a period thing. So that was the first like inspiration, like, oh, okay, I could do that. Yeah, why not? Absolutely. So I started on the path of like, okay, I'm gonna start my way, you know, working at the bottom all the way up. And, you know, even though I got the MFA, the master's degree, when I got out of school, my whole focus was to do it the right way and start as a loader, a camera loader, be a second, be a first, be an operator, and move up the classic Hollywood way. And along that way, I think I got to see it, you know, the machinations from the politics and, you know, how people get jobs and how few of the jobs there were and how many older white males I had to compete against. And being a, you know, a young Black boy, you know, touching this expensive film equipment, you had to, you know, you had to be confident, you had to be aggressive, you could not be timid, you had to really, you really had to muscle up. So, you know, on that journey, and I wouldn't trade it for the world, I think I was able to get a real sense of, all right, how few of these opportunities there are, how focused you gotta be, how exceptional you have to be as you move through. And then people liking you. You know, half of the thing is, you know, like Vanessa said, it's like, okay, they liked her hair. They liked the way she looked. And more than half the gig is people judge you on your appearance, and then they hear you talk. Okay, she's nice, or she's cute. Okay, now you hear her talk. Okay, now, yeah, I got a thing for you, or whatever. And of course, we don't even have to get into the light skin, dark skin part of it. I mean, I know, I know just the Sherry and the Vanessa, like, oh no, we're gonna put, yeah, that's obvious. That's a whole other discussion. So, but for me, as I kind of came through, I think, and I moved up and I took my lumps and I saw what I was dealing with. I just had this very real sense of what it was going to be. So, and when I moved up to the point where I was operating and then DPing, and I got on Empire, and I was on there for 6 seasons. I met Craig. Craig was the director of the current movie. He and I just clicked on Empire. He came in and directed some episodes on Empire, and we just had a good chemistry together. And then he did Eddie's movie Dolomite in between season 4 and season 5, and he and Eddie clicked on that particular job. And then he came back to Empire season 5, and while he was there, we were doing an episode, and he was like, "Hey, he started talking about him getting the deal to do Coming to America." He never asked me until the season was over. Season 5 was over. As soon as we finished season 5, like the day after, he literally called me and was like, "Hey, man, I've been thinking about something. I didn't want to bring it up to you on set." He said, "But I want to ask you to come out and think. I want you to think about doing this movie. I know it's going to be a lot of hurdles for you because you be leaving Empire. You're dealing with a big, a totally different monster with Paramount Pictures versus Fox, and there's a whole bunch of other politics going into that. But he felt like I was a good cast because you're casting your behind the scenes people as well as your in front. So he had worked with Eddie, and he knew Eddie was a certain kind of way. He had worked with me. He knew I was a certain kind of way. And then I think he knew that it would help him. You know what I mean? It would be a good representation. I think, you look at the original movie, with John Landis and Woody Omens, who was the DP. It was, was a white director. It was white DP. And yeah, let's not repeat that. You know what I mean? Obviously on this movie, and this will be my last thing, but I recognize that all of the key Black positions that we had on the movie, pretty much, other than the production designer, were all Black. So costume designer, Ruth Carter, Academy Award winning Black woman, the hair, the makeup, the cinematographer, and these were all Black people that were controlling the look. Obviously, there's a vision by the director and the writer. I mean, Kenya Barris was also one of the writers, which I thought was great. But I was just proud to be a part of the image shaping on the new version with all of these other amazing Black, image shapers. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I think your comments, as well as Vanessa's, really helped to show the other side. Because sometimes you watch the movie and you're saying, well, why is this representation this way? Or how come, as you sort of alluded to, the colorism context. So it's like you're working on a film, trying to get that done, but then you're also working on the institutions of Hollywood and trying to navigate through that. So oftentimes there's this whole other process that creatives on the other side are trying to navigate. So by the time we see it, we don't necessarily hear and know all of those experiences that it took to get it in the can. So it really helps to set the table. Yes, please.
I want to add something, and Joe brought up a topic that I wasn't going to get into, but so true. And what he was saying about now we get to control the images. So true, because back then you had white casting director, you had white everything, as he said. So in their mind, they get to determine who we are. Now, why didn't Eddie or other people speak up about it? I don't know. Maybe that's something they bought into and they felt was right. I can't speak on that. But I felt that immediately when I was asked to read the part of the princess, that because of my color, I wasn't going to be the bride, that I wasn't that prize worthy of coming to America for, but I was okay to be in Africa. If you look at her sister in the original movie, what is she? She's dark. She's darker than me, you know? So, and that's a whole image thing that not only have white folks perpetuated all these years, but we bought into it as well. So we can't totally blame it on them. We've done this as well, where we've made, you look at the videos, the light skinned girl is the girl, and the guy could be the ugliest rapper in the world, but he wants the pretty fine yellow girl, and the brown skinned girl is the bad girl or whatever. So we can get into that, but that's definitely part. But it was so important what Joe was saying about now we get to determine and to define the images, which is so important. And the hair and oh my God, wait till y'all see those wigs, that hair, baby, and those costumes for Coming to America 2 are just amazing. I wasn't on the set as much as Joe, obviously, because he was there every day. I was kind of in and out, but I was so impressed with the job that was being done, really was. But just wanted to throw that little bit in about the images, and we're still fighting that. And that's something we still got to fight. We got to figure that out ourselves, because I still see it even in the movies that we write and direct and produce. Even in our own movies, I see the colorism, and it's got to be worked out. But the one thing that I do love about my role, and Tina, no, this is how Tina knows Lost and I became friends, because she always used me as an example with Kelly. Kelly's like her daughter, and Beyonce. She always used me as an example of a beautiful brown skinned girl. And and the reason she reached out to me is because of something that had to do with Come to America and just that whole topic. And we became friends. We're friends now. But I love that when young girls or mother comes to me and say that they use my character as an example of what being brown and beautiful was, because they had a daughter that didn't feel as pretty because she wasn't fair skinned or whatever. But that has happened to me several times. And apparently, Tina used me to help Kelly understand how beautiful she really was. So that was one of the most flattering things to me, that, it was worth. Of course, I'm so happy that I did the part. Of course, I wasn't going to say no. I just really wanted the bigger part. But also, you never know what God has in store for you, because I've gotten more out of that smaller part than I may have gotten out of the bigger part. I don't know. But that smaller part resonated with so many people, so many jokes and so many sayings, and everything, that if you would have asked me 32 years ago, if I, would have known that this was going to happen, I would have said, no, I want Lisa because it's a bigger role. But God had something different in store for me. He's like, calm down. It may be smaller, but it's going to mean more to you later on. And it really doesn't. Now I wouldn't trade it for the world. I wouldn't trade being Princess Amani for the world, buying that $30 wig that was called Armani. That was an omen that I didn't even recognize at the time. So there we have it.
And I would co-sign, because I remember seeing the film and thinking, wow, are we going to see more of the princess? Where is she? So one of the people who's part of that group that was like, wow, this is what I imagine a queen to look like. So, those images are extremely important. And, just thinking about a number of people who watched the film, continue to watch the film. It's like there's a couple of these black films. You got Cooley High, you got The Color Purple, you got this one. There's a couple other that you can say a line and someone can repeat it. So extremely important, just in terms of, the repository of black cultural production that has just stayed with us. So there's some interesting things that you all have raised. And I wonder if we could talk a little bit about this idea of Afrofuturism, how black people imagine the future and how do we see ourselves in these spaces. And Dr. Yawa, you kind of mentioned this when you talked about how we were positioned as Africans directly from the continent, and then also Africans or African Americans, however your politics work there, who are also in conversation with people throughout the film. So it was one of those films where you got to see some level of complexity in these different personalities from Africa, from the States. And then it's a Black film. We were kind of talking before the panel that it was interesting because the rumor was Black films were not successful outside of the US. And then you have this film, and then a little bit later, there's films like Boomerang that are Black films, but in the estimation of some, they're not Black films. So if could we kind of talk a little bit about how this film, well before Wakanda, was opening the door to this conversation of Africans throughout the diaspora, and then just this idea of, what's a Black film. And if we could, just very briefly, I wanted to shout out the great John Butler, the Bear, who has been an inspiration and a mentor to so many of us who have gone through the MFA program at OU. He's probably forgotten more things about sound than most people will ever learn. So I just want to acknowledge him. But yeah, let's talk a little bit about the Black film or not Black film, and then also how this film sort of opens up a conversation between Black people in the States and abroad, the Caribbean, and of course the continent of Africa.
Coming from where I'm from, looking at that film from a Caribbean perspective, that sort of now I'm trying to navigate the American culture along with this African representation in this film, and it's always a toss-up. You never really know for sure if they are truly representing the cultures that they're supposed to be representing. For I guess New York, once we got into Queens and all that, because it's simply because I was in that area that I was able to recognize some of the truths that was represented, in that space at the time. And the conversation continues with my African friends, people that are from the continent, looking at such a film, and it's like, okay, so how much of this is real? How much of this really does translate as, within the purview of, yes, comedy, but how much of this still rings true? And, the representation still, I think we just had to look at it for what it was, the fact that it was a comedy, the fact that this is a whole made up place. And I doubt whether at the time when it was being created that, maybe I shouldn't doubt it, but some of the things that were played up, the stereotypes that were played up, coming from from the African culture of really seeing royalty and the regalness of these people, and this is kind of the power that we all come from as Black people. So I saw that as that representation, and that's the main thing that I took from that. It's like, what, these are people that have chosen to leave and to kind of challenge a traditional sense of how to, continue or to grow a kingdom and to, create families and stuff like that. But the whole spiel or the kicker about it was, yeah, we got to go to America to figure this out. You know what I mean? Because America is this place, the representation of liberal thought, so that's coming from where I'm coming from Guyana. That's how I saw that coming up.
I think that you're very right. We've got to keep it to what it is. It's a movie, it's a comedy. However, I think moving forward, the lessons we learn are important. We can't dissect that. I mean, we can, but why? It's okay. Let's leave that where it is. It makes no sense in dissecting it. But there's several things I learned through this second portion. Talking to Ruth, who's been a friend for years, Ruth Carter, Academy Award winner Ruth Carter, who's a costumer. There are, and I've learned this from other friends too, and I've been to Africa, but this is something I didn't know, that different fabrics, beads, hairdos, when we do something with African or Caribbean descent, we want to make everything one lump. People want to just go out and get anything that looks African or anything Black, and that's it. But what we all have to learn ourselves so we can teach the rest of the world is that just like you can't lump all Black people together, you can't lump all Africans or all Caribbean people together or cultures. Those are different cultures. The fabrics are different in Africa. They mean different things. The beads mean different things. The hairdos mean different things. And yes, if you just want to do kind of like a broad strokes of where we are, then you can use something from everybody. But I think that moving forward, it is kind of our responsibility now because things are different. We have a different say, a different voice. We do have more movies. We do have more say. We have more cinematographers. We have more directors. We have more costumers. We have more people, actresses, that now we're doing projects that we can learn and we can show the world that we aren't just clumped together because we're all Black. That just like there's different kind of white folks all over the world, there's different kind of Black folks all over the world. And I think that's really important because I learned something this time around that I really didn't know. And I have to be honest, I didn't know that. And but I think that we can also understand that moving forward, it's for me what I like to see. I love to see like the Wakandas and the Zamundas. I was in Harriet. I don't mind being a slave because Harriet Tubman was a badass. And that movie for me was not a slavery. It was more like she was a superhero. And we have those movies, but we need other movies, slices of life, to tell our other stories as well about being Black in this world, being African, being Caribbean, whatever stories we want to tell. But we need to be able to tell other stories that show us the range of who we are and the diversity within our own culture and colors, you know. So for me, moving forward, I mean, you know, like I said, I don't think picking it apart right now is going to really do anything, but I think that we need to think progressively moving forward. How can we better our filmmaking, our storytelling, and just supporting each other for who we are, and where we come from, and to also explain and to educate the world more about us as we educate ourselves.
Absolutely. So, Joe, could I come to you? You're in a unique position having worked on part two along with Vanessa, and then also having your experience on Empire. So I'm sure you've heard the discussion around Empire, extremely popular to some, extremely problematic to others. What's that conversation like behind the scenes in terms of how do we make better images? How do we tell more layered stories about our experiences? What are some insights that you have that might be helpful for us to think about moving forward?
Well, I feel like there's just a multifaceted approach to it. I mean, you know, they're the actors that are in front of the camera who have become more empowered to speak up about who they want to work with, what directors they want to work with, what cinematographers they want to work with, creating their own things, content, writing their own material. You know, more and more actors are moving into directing, which I think has been a real kind of proper way to take control of it. I've seen on Empire, just being in that TV world, doing episodic, I get to work with so many different directors, right? So every eight days, you get a new director. You know, it's the same crew, but it's a new director. And you know, I've done a few other TV shows. I was mostly in motion picture before Empire, maybe 2 or 3 years in TV before Empire. But getting into that TV world, I got to see a lot of different directors. So I got to see a lot of female directors. I got to see a lot of Black directors come through. Some with very little experience, some with a ton of experience, you know, and you get surprised and you see people that look like me taking the reins, taking more control. You know, for instance, Mario Van Peebles was one of our recurring directors on Empire. You know, he still acts a little bit, but he is a prolific director. So now he's directing a ton of TV. You know, I think of somebody like that. I think of, you know, there's a ton of other Black actors that have moved into it, and there are new directors, you know, that are coming into the game. And TV has been the way because there's so much content across the board. There's so many networks. There's the internet. There's, you know, there's YouTube channels. Of course, there's Netflix, Amazon, Apple TV, Quibi. You know, there's a flood of content for people to get opportunities to direct. And aside from directing, there's the original content that's being created by a lot of people that's getting sold on Netflix. There's stuff coming on Netflix that's been out for years that I didn't even know. It's like, oh, wow, this such and such did that. Oh, there's a Black movie. There's another Black movie. And like Vanessa was saying, you know, we got a bunch of stories. We are not a myopic people. So we can do fantasy. We can do, you know, we could do biopics. We could do all of these things so that we could become a little less sensitive about, you know, compartmentalizing and trying to deconstruct, like, oh, well, man, you know, the one movie that came out in 88, we got to break it all the way down because this is the one thing, you know, this is the one serving that we got. Like, no, we can serve a bunch of stuff. So I think the more content creation that we're doing, that I've been seeing a lot with a lot of directors coming through, and creating a new stuff, creating new series. I think the TV is the new big screen, is the new silver screen. You know, networks, you know, especially now, obviously with the pandemic, a lot more people are being at home, and people are, you know, and audiences are intelligent. You know what I mean? You don't have to, you know, you don't have to spoon feed it all. You know what I mean? People get it. People get it. You know, so I think, you know, it's okay to be critical. You know, I think obviously we're used to being critical of ourselves. We have to be. We're getting judged. We don't get as many we haven't been getting as many opportunities, but we're getting a lot more. So I think, you know, we can start to ease into, like, there's a ton of different stories. Yeah, there's Afrofuturism. There are people, Black sci-fi people. There are Black Trekkies. You know what I mean? There's all of these different genres and things that we're into. And I think it's all, you know, it's all good. You know, I think it's all good. But yeah, controlling the content, controlling the image, and, you know, my experience at OU, taking the class that you're currently teaching, you know, Black media, was one of the things that really kind of really gave me the zest to, like, okay, I want to help shape the images of people that look like me, because there aren't enough. And what I'm seeing is there's a lot of other people telling my story, or there's, you know, and it's like, okay, I'm not a great writer. You know, I don't have the discipline for that, you know, so how do I do that, you know? So if I'm working with a white director, and a white director is saying, yeah, we want to do this because this is cool and whatever, sexy and exotic, I'm able to say, yeah, well, maybe let's take a look at this over here where it's a little more flattering. It might be a da 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 da. So I can kind of be a prism or a stopgap to slow a director down from getting too caught up in the white male gaze. You know what I mean? So it's just like, as you know, as I grow and as I've, you know, kind of gone through it, I see my power, and I try to use it, you know, intelligently. And then I also encourage young people to write the material, create the content, and tell your own stories. And that way we can do it.
I want to piggyback on something that Joe just said, because it's so true. And as we were talking about then and now, I've been blessed. I direct several episodes of my show that I star in, Saints and Sinners, on Bounce TV. You can also see it on Hulu. And years ago, I would have not been able to be number one on the call sheet. And when we say that, for anybody who's listening, that means you're the star of the show. Number one on the call sheet, you're number one. And Black women, and we know that Kerry Washington was number one. We know Viola Davis has been number one. There's several people now. Now we're finally getting to where Black women are the leads of the show. And it doesn't matter, you know, my network's a little smaller than ABC or NBC, but still, we just finished shooting our 5th season, and we also did a TV movie. But I'm number one on the call sheet. And because of that, I was able to jump in and direct, and I've directed some other things as well. I just directed a short for BET for Breast Cancer Month, and I'm going to direct another TV movie. And it's so important, you know, that we are given these opportunities in this industry, because Joe is so right now that the content is opened up, and the stories are being told. There's more networks. Before, when we just had ABC, NBC, CBS, they controlled everything, you know. And what used to tick me off back, in, you know, in the day, as I call it, when they were saying, "Oh, you black people, you need to write your own stories. You need to write your own stories. Well, guess what? We did, and they still stopped us. And I used to tell people, I don't want to hear that, because I have some black friends who are writers who have stacks of scripts, movies and TV, pilots and things that they wrote and could not get it on. So Joe is so right about that. You young people write. I always tell everybody, write. I try to write. I'm not the best writer, but I still write, because you never know. All you need is one good idea, one good thing that you can sell. And you got to learn how to produce, direct. And I always tell people too, network across. We always want to network above us. That's cool. But network across, especially people who are in college or grad school, because you're sitting next to the next new hot, DP, the next new hot director, the new star. You're growing up with those people as you're studying. So networking across is so important, because you learn from each other. And then when the time comes, you help support and provide each other whatever they need to complete their project.
Thank you so much. I mean, I really appreciate the conversation. I think you all have made my job very easy, because many of the points you're making are questions I want to ask. What advice would you give to people getting into the game, or someone who wants to understand the industry a little better? And you all have.
I have one more too. I'm sorry, I have one more
Don't
that
worry.
I always leave everybody with. Stay ready to be ready. That's so important. If you don't like, and I tell young people this all the time, if you don't like your weight, you think your teeth need fixing, you don't like your hairdo, whatever it is that you like to change about yourself, your attitude, you need more studying, because we all have something we want to better. Not that it's a bad thing, but we just think we can do better. It's not going to change from Friday to Monday. So Friday, if there were some things about yourself you needed to fix, you're going to be that same person basically on Monday. I can't tell you the number of jobs that I have literally walked and met the producer and either went to the costumer right from the meeting or was at work the very next morning, which means I didn't have time to get ready. I had to be ready when I walked through the door. So I always tell everybody, stay ready to be ready, because that is so important. Because when the door opens, for all you young people out there listening, and us seasoned ones, because I'm still put in a situation where I have to perform on a dime, or I have to make it happen, or they're trying to decide if they want to hire me, and I've got to do that one thing that works, because there's so many people. Everybody's good. I'm not the only good actress out there, and you got to understand that. So I always tell everybody, stay ready, be ready, because when the door opens, it opens for a brief moment. It's swift, and when you kick it down, you got to come in with guns ablazing, and you got to be able to seal the deal, because you really get one chance. Because I have seen people come back. It's like the Aunt Viv and Fresh Prince. You looked up, there was a new Aunt Viv. I can't tell you how many times I've been on the show, and I'm not saying what happened with that because I don't know the story, but trust me, the show will go on with or without you. They will hire another Johnny, honey. A new Johnny will be on that set tomorrow, and the audience will forget that old Johnny was ever there. So you got to stay ready to be ready.
That's sage advice, particularly for I'm not going to say all young people. I'll just say a number of people who feel like the world owes them something, and because they showed up, they should be given everything. So preparation, that is so important, and being a student of your craft. So what I've learned from listening to everyone is that, talent is one thing, but the hustle, the drive, and the work is something else as well. And then the networks. Many of you have talked about, working with other people, and then this idea that you're going to network not just above, but with other folks. And I just wanted to dispel a myth. There are some who believe because I went to OU or I'm at OU that I can't do this. You all are living proof that, that's possible. You can go to OU and you can go to Hollywood and you can be successful, and you can be talking about a film that's 32 years old and how powerful it is. It's possible. So, we really appreciate the conversation from all of us, from all of you on this particular call. So could we answer a few questions from the chat? Can we do that, Bose?
Sure. Do you just want to go ahead and read them, or yeah?
Yeah, I see. Let me know if I'm missing something. I see one that says that it's exciting. Everyone has college excuse me, connection to the College of Fine Arts at OU. What advice do you have for the university to move forward in this era of Black Lives Matter? So we kind of talked a little bit about that, not necessarily explicit to the university. I don't know if anybody wanted to address that or to talk about that. I know most of us are not necessarily on campus connected to the daily goings on, so that might not be a question that people want to entertain. I'm happy to offer an answer, but
Honey, I'm a dinosaur at OU. I've been gone so long. I don't know what they're doing there. But you can come out of OU and do anything you want. How about that?
That's what I want to throw on top of that is, the kind of like modeling the each one teach one kind of thing. Like your positions or your circles of influence are always the places that you need to start from. Your friends, your colleagues, whatever. It's teaching them. It's making sure that they have the information that they need in order to change this dynamic that is ever growing and is always in competition to quieting or creating noise against Black voices. So like really pushing our narrative, sharing our stories, and continually engaging people in making sure that they know what we are, who we are, and where we come from.
Thank you. And if I could add to that, I think, there's this idea of the Bobcat Mafia when you think of certain disciplines at the school, that if you graduate, you can go into the field and you'll meet other OU alum. So I think, one of the things that the university could do, have more programs like this where we bring back our alum who are successful, who are blazing trails, and, invite them to come to speak if they can, have seminars, have conversations. I know it's difficult in this Zoom heavy COVID era, but just taking advantage of those resources. I'm always impressed by how giving of their time and energy alum are for OU. There's something special about those bricks, whether it's Black alumni, whether it's homecoming, or different events that alumni come back to. So I think that could be done. And just, echoing what you've already said, creating those opportunities and ensuring that idea of the Bobcat Mafia in a positive sense is effective for students who are up and coming and, looking for opportunities. But I think, I go back to what Vanessa shared, that's not going to be it in and of itself. You meet these people, you still have to do the work. What does Ayanna Van Sant say? I did my work. So you have to be willing to do that and be consistent in order to move up into a space where you'd like to be to realize your creative vision, whatever that might be. So we're all excited about part 2. What are your, I know you can't give away the plot of the movie, but what are some things you think that people will be excited to see in this new Coming to America? I know you mentioned the costumes and Ruth Carter and some of the other people involved, but what do you anticipate people being really excited about?
Well, I think one of the things I think my people would be excited about, which is one thing that I was excited about when I saw the first one, is just, even though it's a fantasy, just this depiction of Africans and civility and beauty and grandeur. Obviously it's a fantasy, so there's a disconnect there, and that's okay. But just all these beautiful brown people and all of the shades of brown and the shades of color of blue and purple and red and the tapestry, and just seeing us in all of it. And it's funny, and and we got, everybody came back. I mean, just about everybody came back, and Vanessa came back. It's just like, the smallest parts. I mean, we got maybe 3 people that didn't, but all of the people that folks remember will be back. I mean, James Earl Jones. I just think, it was surreal for me. it's still surreal, even though I just finished like the color timing on it last week, you know, still seeing it and just like, damn, I was there. You know what I mean? Just so happy and proud to be a part of it. And to be another pillar into the Black cinematic iconic thing, you know? So I think, and the timing, I think the timing is good, even though it's pushed till March. I think, you know, we'll still be ready for it. You know, we still want to see it, and it's a good time. I think it'll be a good time for a couple of generations, you know?
Absolutely. I mean, we've been waiting 32 years, so we'll wait again. We'll wait till March.
And you know what? Let me speak on that part. And well, Joe was there more than me. He saw the grandeur. But yes, oh my God! Just when I got set, and I was working, I was doing my series, and I was already in Atlanta. Then I had to fly home, but because I was on set, I had to fly back a couple times. But I would have walked. I was not going to miss that because of how, you know, Coming to America, how it fared over these years, how it's, you know, it's iconic. It's an iconic movie now for our Black culture and just in cinematography and in movies. It's historically, one of those things. And when you get a job like that, you just try to get a job. Now, somebody tells you it's going to become a timeless piece. You go, yeah, sure, that'd be nice. But you never know. And funny, people have been asking for it. They've been talking about this, you know, remake, the number 2 for years. And I just thought to myself, I said, you know, it's so interesting how timing is, because if they would have done it 15 years earlier, they wouldn't be able to tell this story, right, Joe? They wouldn't be able to tell this story, which really parallels the first one. Yeah. I mean, the way they wrote it and the way they were able to still make it Coming to America, meaning part 2 and still going to America has a double meaning. Mm-hmm. Had we done this movie 15 years ago, I don't know what story it would have been, but it wouldn't have been this story. And it is so funny. I mean, the script was funny, and you know that the script means nothing because once everybody gets on set, it becomes a whole nother thing. Right. So it was so funny. And I just think people are really going to enjoy it. I was really personally disappointed that the pandemic stopped our Christmas premiere this year. And the party, I was looking forward to the party, darling. Let's keep it real, dear. I was looking forward to that premiere, honey. I was already figuring out what I was gonna wear. But that is disappointing that we won't have that celebratory, because it's that type of movie that garners that. It deserves that. But that's okay. It's coming out, and it's coming out where more people will see it than probably would have seen it. And hopefully a ton of money will still be made off of it. I'm sure they made a deal that was worth their while. But it's going to be funny, and it's time. And after Wakanda, because I always tell people, Zamunda was first, darling. Zamunda was first. So it's going to be nice, you know, to see and see everybody on screen. And I think they're going to enjoy it.
Yeah. I think so. I know just the rumor mill on the internet about the possibility, people have been super excited. It's like the 5 heartbeats getting back together. So yeah, I'm excited to see it. It's one of those films that I recall watching this film and Color Purple with my mother more than once, and the conversations it generated, how much it meant to different generations of Black people. I can recall the kitchen table conversations of Black women in my family, being able to see themselves in a complexity of spaces and being able to say, you know what, I can relate to that, and just having fun. You know, and what I appreciated about those conversations, it ranged from the serious, talking about the challenges that Black women face, to, you know, just the funny experiences. So the film covers a range of those in terms of representation. And I know that part 2 will probably do the same and then some. So it's an important film, as we sort of talked about. There were a couple of questions in the chat. We've already talked a little bit about the Black Lives Matter context in the university. There was another question just more so generally related to how do I get involved with screenwriting? What are some suggestions for people who are trying to do that? And then, you know, another question sort of related to Black women specifically, you know, how do I navigate those challenges when there are so many barriers? We've talked about colorism as one. We've also talked about how it's the look, not necessarily the quality and the skill set. So how do you get in the industry that all that still exists? Maybe not like it was back in the 80s, but how do you do that?
Well, first of all, I'm gonna say you can't take no as an answer, because I mean, I graduated from OU in '79. I had not a clue about the industry. There was nobody in my family. I didn't even know how to wear makeup. You know, you just gotta figure it out. I hate to just be really blunt. You just gotta figure it out. You want to screenwrite? Write every day. Take classes. Give yourself an assignment where you write something every day for 30 days or 60 days. Go online, find some classes. Take those classes, and then let somebody evaluate your stuff. I learned how to put on makeup a little bit at OU when I pledged, because one of my sorority sisters, all she knew was fashion fair. But we would take lipstick and do like this and put a little bit on. I didn't know anything about it. So when I got to New York and I was dancing and, you know, trying out for commercials and TV shows, whatever Black girls my age could try out for, everybody my age was there trying out for, because we didn't have a lot of work. I would look at the girl who was the it girl, who everybody said, oh, that's so-and-so. I'd watch her come through. I'd check out her hair and her clothes, how she did everything. I'd sit next to her and I'd start talking to her, befriending her, and I'd study her makeup. Then I'd go home and I'd practice that. And then I would go buy some outfits that looked similar to because this was the girl that was booking all the gigs. So I figured out, well, she knew something I didn't know, so let me figure it out. You got to figure it out. I mean, it's no formula. There's not a pill. You know, I don't care if you're in Athens, Ohio, you could be at Howard, you could be, you know, at Carnegie Mellon, you could be wherever. That doesn't, just because you came from Yale doesn't mean you're gonna become a big star. Doesn't mean that. You gotta have the tenacity. You've got to figure out what to do. I always tell young people, think of everything that you think will work, and the things that you think are a little offbeat and won't work, try those, because when you think out of the box, those are some of the things that resonate and will get you in the door or get that meeting and get that email. And you guys have so much more now than like I did. You have emails, you can make your own films, you can write your own stuff, you can like get in touch with people a whole lot easier. There's more parts, there's more content, there's more venues for the content. So figure it out. I mean, if you see somebody like Joe, and Joe told you how he got to his thing, you can send Joe some emails. You might get on his nerve a little bit. Lord knows how many times people have gotten on my nerves, but I finally say, let me answer this child, because if I don't answer this child, they're not gonna stop emailing me. And you look at Joe's career and you say, what did Joe do to get here? He just directed Come to America too, and you just did Jesse's movie too, right? Because he wanted me to do that, but I was tied up in Atlanta. But so I know he called me to do that, but with COVID and all that, I couldn't do all that flying back and forth, and I was really disappointed. But he asked me, and he told me that you were doing it. But you got to look at Joe and say, this is what he's done. How do I become Joe Williams? And then you follow his trajectory. What did he do? How did he do it? And you emulate it to what works for you. You just got to figure it out. There's no formula, but you got to be trained and you got to put the work in, because you can figure it out. But if you get that opportunity and you don't know how to act, or you don't know anything about lights, and you don't know how to direct, and you can't, just kind of fluff your way through things. You got to really know what you're talking about at some point, because you're going to get tested on it. But you can figure it out. That's as blunt as I can make it, because everybody wants a pill. Everybody wants an easy way. There is none. I knew nothing, and I had to learn everything, and everything I didn't know, I asked. I talked to people. I joined acting groups. I joined scene study. I talked to other actors my age. I sent to producers and directors notes all the time, because that's before we had the email. So I would literally send postcards with notes to everybody, like every month. And I got on a lot of people's nerves. That's how I met Reuben Cannon. You know, Reuben Cannon is a big director. When I moved to LA, Reuben Cannon, who ended up becoming a very good friend, he and his wife and children, said he had a stuff stacked like this high that I had sent him. And he said, I had to meet this girl who keeps sending me stuff. He said, because if he didn't finally meet me, he knew I was gonna keep sending stuff. And I ended up working with Reuben Cannon. What's Love Got to Do with It? Brothers, Cheap Provider, not Cheap Provider Dozen, the one I did with Steve Harvey, whatever that was called, can't think about it right now. The one with Nick Cannon and Steve Harvey. But anyway, I ended up becoming a friend, and Reuben Cannon put a lot of food on my table because I figured it out. I kept doing stuff. until something happened. And that's really the best advice I can give you.
Yeah. I'll piggyback on that. I mean, it's pretty straight ahead. There is no blueprint. There is no set formula. Everybody's track is going to be a little different. So, you look at what's, like she said, you look at what somebody else did. You can take some ingredients from that, add your own thing, and then find your path. I mean, you got to believe. You can't be scared, and you gotta believe. You really have to find the belief, and you can't be afraid. And this is just one of those industries that is, everybody's path is going to be different. There, no two are the same. No two cinematographers' paths are the same. I didn't go to NYU. I didn't go to AFI. But I could visualize it. I could see it happening. It was like, yeah, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You got to believe, and you got to be able to see it. If you can see yourself doing it, like literally visualize yourself in the position of handling and managing and doing and creating or whatever it is that it is, then you most likely can do it. You got to believe, and you got to stay with it. It doesn't hurt to have a support system. I mean, it's not a family-friendly business. So if you're trying to get into it, your partner has got to be down in a lot of ways. It's much easier if you're single, but yeah, it's tough. It is hard. It's not easy, and there is no one path. So, speak to the other point of just hassling people. You got to do it. It's part of it. And if you're not social, or if you feel weird or shy about like asking somebody you're not going to make it. You're just not. You got to keep hassling people until they give you an answer. And that was one of my mantras. I was like, early on, I was like, okay, I kept sending my resumes. I was trying to be an AC to get hired by a first AC, because as a loader, the DP doesn't hire you. The person immediately above you hire you. So the second AC. So I was chasing these second ACs, second assistant camera people, trying to get on as a loader. And they were all white. I had no allies in the game. So it was just like I was sending resumes, I was faxing production offices, however I was doing it. I mean, at that time, Hollywood Reporter used to put phone numbers for the production office. So I would look at the Hollywood Reporter and, just fax these numbers and all of the trade magazines or whatever. And, I didn't know. I didn't have anybody to blaze a trail for me to do it. I figured it out. And that's literally what it was. It's like, oh, okay, we're here. I get in here. Then I meet this person. Then I network. Then the cross networking, like Vanessa said, it's just like, yeah, rocking with the people that's on your level, staying good with everybody, treating people with respect, not talking down to people, because you never know who it is that might plug you in. You talking down to some production assistant that you think is a peon or whatever. A month later, yeah, they've been assisting Reuben Cannon. They were their personal assistant, but now they're the executive producer for Reuben Cannon Studios, and they're bossing, and now they're hiring you. So, you got to be cool and respectful to people, and you got to do it with a little bit of fear is fine, but you can't be scared to speak up, because the closed mouth will not get fed. Guaranteed.
Thank you. So, in essence, what you or who may get you there, and what will keep you there. And there's got to be drive and determination. And I really appreciate what you all share just in terms of your vision. So, it's so important that, you have to be your most fierce advocate. So when things get tough, things are challenging, what I'm hearing from you is that you have to persevere, and you don't give up. So I think, looking at your careers, it's a testament to that advice.
And professionalism, you guys. And what Joe's saying is like, it's so true. Do people want to have a beer with you? Because anybody can do the part. I mean, I'm special, but I'm not that special. You know what I mean? But do they like me? No, do they like me? Do they want to be around me? Do people want to have a beer? Because as I tell my kids, you know, the other part about being professional, if you are on time, you're late. And if you're late, you're fired. So when they tell me to be at work at 5 o'clock, that don't mean pulling into the studio at 5 a.m., parking my car. That means my butt needs to be in the hair or makeup chair at 5 a.m. COVID and I'm back on Shameless this season. So I've been working with Shameless now, and we got COVID, we got all that. So I have to give myself like an extra half hour, 45 minutes. Because now I got to park a different place. I can't park on the set no more like we used to. I got to walk, and then I got to get tested, and then get tested again and show this bad. I've got to think about that extra time. Because when they say my call time, I had like a 6 a.m. call time last week. That don't mean pulling up at 6 a.m. That means my butt in the trailer. So if you need an extra 15 minutes to put your stuff down in the trailer, go to the bathroom, get a cup of whatever. Because if you are on time, you're late. And if you're late, you're fired. And if you got an attitude problem, don't worry about it. Even if they finish you out on this one, you won't be back on nobody else's that they know. And I can't tell you how many, Joe, what you said is so true. I'm not going to mention people's names, but there's people who were assistants. They were running around getting coffee on shows that I was on when I was a young girl, you know, young woman in the industry. And I could have been one of them, you know, I'm just really cute person, but I like talking to people, so I'm very friendly. And this thing now got 5, 6 shows, and she's hired me, but she's also very friendly with me. And she said, Vanessa, you are always nice to me. That's what she told me. She said, you are always nice to me. And she was running around frazzled getting coffee for people. You never know. So you always be nice. You never, and there's been some PAs who've been on the set. You don't talk down or look down on anybody. I don't care if you're the star of that show, because in 5, 6 years, your stuff could be declining and they're on the rise. They'd be like, you know what, you just a bitch. That's okay. I'm good with you.
Yep.
So true. So
that's
true.
real.
Jules. Yep. Nah, that's it. One last thing I would say is you got to be stay fluid in being able to go to where the work is. You know, don't think like, oh, I'm gonna just stay here. And no, you got to be able to go where the work is. Find the work. You know, if it's not in your city, you know, don't expect it to come there. You know, I'm from Cleveland, you know, and that's still my, you know, my heart or whatever. I live in Chicago. You know, I sought it out in a lot of different ways. I mean, I got here because of my wife, my ex-wife, but it was never, I was always able, I had a support system to where, okay, the work is in New York, you know what, you can go to New York and make that happen. You know, you go to work, you're trying to work with Spike, go there. All right, cool. In Atlanta, you're trying to do something, Tyler Perry, yeah, cool. You have to be able to go where the work is, on top of treating the people with respect. That is like probably one of the biggest things I think people don't learn early, is that whole shifting of like, yeah, you could be on a decline, and somebody that was under you this is the one business where you will see it immediately.
Thank you. Sage advice again. So we're close to our time. So I want to say thank you to all of the panelists for your insights, for your expertise and your thoughts on this conversation. So many jewels have been dropped here. So I'm hopeful that those in our audience were able to gain as much from this as I have. And so we've got just a few more minutes. So maybe we can end with each panelist offering one final thought. And then after that, we will wrap.
Oh, okay. So, yeah, I was just gonna say, you know, thank you so much for the opportunity to be sitting among these greats that I'm here with right now, and really, really happy that these stories are now going to be told, and you know, more folk now actually have access to, you know, folks that would have been trailblazers and whatnot. You know, always being persistent for sure. You know, just echoing Joe and Vanessa's points of persistence. And, you know, also, I think taking the time to listen to your own voice, like the voice that you're trying to bring to this table. Like, you know, you can learn from everyone else that has hone their voices of what it is that they want to share and create. But pay attention to your voice, and you have a unique voice that you want to bring to the table. That's going to make a way for you as well. So honing your voice as you are learning from the folks that are around you and the folks that inspire you is definitely another way to go.
Yeah, I guess, believing, understanding that this is a very unconventional business. And yeah, you got to do whatever you got to do. Obviously, you don't want to compromise, keep your integrity in there. There's a lot of, there's a lot of groveling that happens here. There's a lot of pride swallowing that happens in the business. And you can't be thin-skinned, So, I know we carry a chip already, being Black or whatever. But a lot of times it ain't got nothing to do with that. Do you have the wherewithal? Do you have the skill set? And can you execute the thing? Because at some point you're not you're not Black. At some point, can you do the thing? Do you know how to set up the thing, the light or the camera or the lens or the whatever it is, the makeup application, the wardrobe design, the sound design, whatever, the editorial? At some point, it gets down to the ability. And, I think, it's good to be critical of the content that we put out there. I think, that's fine. We could be critical, but also we got to applaud, the people and the artisans that put it together, and completing however it is. If it's a low budget, small budget project, you see Black people in front of the camera, support it. If you don't want to see it, then try not to bash it. You know what I mean? There's a lot of stories that need to be told. And, I think there's some good in all of it. We got a lot of different stories to tell. So.
Thank you. Did you have any?
I would say for me, tell everybody, work on yourself, really whatever that means to you. Because when you find your own joy and you go on sets, and this is like life, you go in an office or whatever you do, a classroom, when you have your own joy and you are centered, it resonates throughout the whole room and your whole being. And people want to be in your company. They want to do business with you. And you just have a different energy that you bring to a set or office or a classroom. The eyes are truly a mirror to the soul. And if you're faking it, people can feel it and they can see it. So whatever you need to do to find your joy, find your happiness, because the thing people don't realize is you got to be happy when the camera goes off and when you go home. That's where your happiness really counts. So whatever that is that you need at home, a family or not, or whatever it is you into, find that happiness, because that happiness will permeate into you and it will stay with you. So when you show up in the mornings or wherever you go, you still have a piece of whatever your happiness is. And if you're not happy, get rid of the stuff in your life and the people that ain't helping you and move on to the path that's going to make you happy. Because I truly believe that when you have that joy and when you're happy, your whole world opens up and blessings come to you that you don't even know. People are attracted to you. People are saying your name. Things are happening for you because of the energy you put out. So I would leave everybody with that.
Thank you so much. And if it's possible, could you all put your IG or your Twitter so that people could follow you in the chat? Some great advice. And I know that you have other things happening. I know there are some other shows, some internet series that you all are working on. So if people could follow you so they could watch and learn more about that, that would be amazing. But again, thank you, everyone involved in putting this together, from our collection of amazing panelists for agreeing to give up their time. And in Vanessa Bell Callaway's instance, her morning, we thank you. We are happy to have you. So thank you, Bose, Monique, everyone behind the scenes for doing this. Barbara, who is our, mix master behind the scenes. thank you for your time, and please come back for the next Pan-African discussion. I think they are deliberating on the next film to discuss, but we are grateful for all the people who put this together, and thank you for attending. And we are out. Thank you.